generative AI that we're now seeing will absolutely transform work of today, tomorrow, and the future. I think that's where I'm getting most excited. I'm getting most excited about the concept of being able to deploy generative AI to take the mundane out of some of the jobs we have.
Welcome to episode 2 of the Tech Leaders Podcast AI series. After an amazing conversation with the brilliant Priya Lakhani, how on earth are we going to follow that up? Well, luckily, we have another amazing guest lined up today. We have the brilliant Catriona Campbell, the UK Client Technology and Innovation Officer at Ernst and Young, one of the world's leading consultancy firms. Catriona is on an amazing trajectory, I think it's fair to say, having founded and led one of Europe's largest tech and services design agencies, and then went on to become the first female client tech and innovation officer for EY, and also played a pivotal role, quite notably, in launching the Neuro-Diverse Centre of Excellence, one of the first of its kind in the UK, which we unpack at length. Catriona was also part of Tony Blair's Taskforce for Inclusive Design of Government Services, which created the standards for UK government's online presence. Catriona is also the author of AI by Design, a book that explores the importance of artificial intelligence in our future and predicts future scenarios in light of advancements in AI tech using behavioral psychology, technology, and real-life examples. Catriona brings so much to the table, a wealth of knowledge and experience. Kerensa and I are just so excited to unpack her amazing career and get her extremely well-informed thoughts on this hot topic. This is going to be a good one. It's Catriona Campbell. Catriona Campbell, thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders Podcast. Kerensa and I have been so excited about this one. It's a pleasure to get you on and have a chat as part of this AI series. How are you today?
Great, and thank you. I'm just honoured to be here. It's lovely to meet you both.
Lovely to meet you.
So let's start with a bang then, Catriona. I want to sort of ask you just outright, what excites you most about the evolution of AI technology?
Well, I think that's a great word to use, evolution, because, AI technology really started appearing in the 1950s. So it's actually been a transformative technology. It's been around for some time. I think that evolution, though, has sped up remarkably just in the last year. And I think with that speeding up of technology has become this massive democratisation. So really the GPT platform has become available to all to use. Their previous versions of technologies that deployed AI were held in-house in organizations. This one has become available to the public, and it's an incredibly easy-to-use interface. Much like in the start of the .com days, there were lots of search engines out there, lots of them, but Google became a vastly superior one because of its simplicity to use. And that's what GPT has created for us. So I'm excited about the evolution. I'm excited about the democratization. A little bit nervous, Gareth, Kerensa, a little bit nervous about the application of it, but very excited about the possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good answer.
Is there a particular area in the various fields of AI that are evolving that excite you in particular? Or are you driven more by the innovation and the use case potential of how it makes things possible for people all over the world?
You couldn't say it more eloquently, Kerensa. I think both are incredibly exciting, but I think that the generative AI that we're now seeing will absolutely transform work of today, tomorrow, and the future. I think that's where I'm getting most excited. I'm getting most excited about the concept of being able to deploy generative AI to take the mundane out of some of the jobs we have. So a good example is the legal profession. I'm very excited about the concept of the legal profession being able to use past precedent built into databases where they no longer need to have associates leaf through massive tomes, massive books to understand what it is that makes a good case in that particular field, but being able to just search through a database and find the winning argument for a case. I mean, that is taking the mundane out of that job and improving the job for those individuals. Now, it's also fair to say, I think, Kerensa, that we'll see some jobs disappear as a matter of course, but we'll see new jobs. And I mean, I refer to a number of historical technologies that were transformative like this one. You know, when James Watt, that great Scot, designed the steam engine in the 1770s, it meant that carriage drivers no longer had roles, no longer had jobs, but there was a new job for a steam engine driver. So let's just hope that we have the clarity of thought around the new jobs and taking the mundane out of some of the more boring jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you have a sense of what are the types of skills that human beings will need to be developing over the next few years and really dialing up to in the face of both the opportunities and the challenges of what's happening in AI?
So I think really interestingly, so my background is psychology and human-computer interaction. And the field of psychology, human-computer interaction that I specialised in, you need to be slightly creative to be able to design technology, but also equally, you need to understand technology and you need to have a mathematical mind. So by merging the creatives with the technologists, I think that's where we need to look at building new skills. It's no longer sufficient for a coder to just be able to code. He needs to be able to be a prompt engineer. He needs to be able to think outside the box around what it is that needs coded, how we will code that in the future. And I think our creatives need to understand more about technology. So I think creativity is one of the skills that we're all going to have to increase our knowledge around.
Yeah, for sure.
And you've got quite an exciting job at EY. Just tell us a little bit about how you bring that to life for your clients.
Sure. So my role is twofold within EY. I'm the first CTIO, female CTIO in EY globally. And my role is to look after the technology that powers our services that we deliver for our clients, and also to create services that make our employees' roles easier. Now, I do that by providing an innovation service. So the technology and the innovation go hand in hand in EY. It's not done in a bubble innovation, it's done with our clients, it's done with our staff, and we follow the double diamond innovation method. So everything we do is done with researching with our users. It's testing and learning with our users. It's then deploying with our users. And so it's a very human-centric design approach. So when I talk to clients about the technology we're designing for them, I'll say this was built with clients like you. So this is a very user-centered piece of technology. And fortunately for me, the business operates with that kind of remit that we will build, we will collectively collaborate on new technologies with and for clients.
Very well said. And there's a number of things there I'd like to unpack. I wanted to cast your mind back, Catriona, right to the beginning of your career. What did you want to be when you grew up? Okay. And talk us through the main milestones of your early career, which set you on the path that you ultimately, ended up following.
Well, I love that question because it wasn't dissimilar from what I'm doing now, to be honest. So when I was 10 years of age, my father, who worked for IBM at the time, came home to the household in the evening and said, we're moving, kids. To my mum, he said, we're moving to France. Now, for a wee Glaswegian girl, that was really quite exciting. I ended up in an international school in Paris, where the European headquarters of IBM was located at the time. And it was whilst I was there and I was 12, 13, I met the teacher who taught psychology at my school. Now, in Glasgow, previous school I'd been at, you wouldn't have had psychology, sociology, even computing in those days. But this was an international school with an IB format, International Baccalaureate. And of course, psychology was just one of the sciences that was taught. He was just an exceptional teacher. And I got a real interest into understanding mental models, how people think. I then went off to university and having done an undergraduate in psychology, I decided that the field of human-computer interaction, that field, that spur of psychology, was absolutely going to meet my needs of both being excited about technology, but excited about the mental models that people have. And so the combination of tech and psych is absolutely where HCI meets. And so I started working in the city in London as soon as I graduated. I was delighted to be offered a position to join Barclays. at the time, Barclays Bank was in 54 Lombard Street in the City of London. And their CEO was the youngest CEO in the bank's history. His name was Martin Taylor. And I don't know if that guy had a crystal ball, but within about a year, he'd said, listen, this internet thing, and this was 1997, this internet thing that's happening just now is going to be incredibly important for financial services. What I would like us to do is I'd like us to set up a website. I'd like us to ensure that we have some level of services for clients on it, for customers on it. And Catriona, you seem like someone who could do that for me. So I was very fortunate to be in the position that nobody else kind of wanted to do it or had the skills to do it. So they gave it to this very, very young 24-year-old wee girl and said, off you go.
What was it about you that made him have that faith and confidence? There's this young woman, obviously very much with drive and vision, but he's seeing something really special in you at that point.
I think I have to thank the global head of communications was where I sat. I sat in that part of the business. And it was him who said, listen, this is something we need to do. It wasn't part of the strategy of the bank at the time. It was more about the PR. It was more about, I'll tell you a really interesting fact. We didn't even own our own URL. We didn't own barclays.com or barclays.co.uk. In fact, there was a cyber squatter on both those sites. And the cyber squatter had added a picture of the CEO with devil horns coming out his head and had a bit of a beef with the bank at the time. So my task was to go off and find out how to get that off that cyber squatter. So that was my first job. Then my second job was, well, we've got these sites now. What do we do with them? And he said, listen, I think the banking of the future will be done here. Let's start building it out. So that's where the strategy started. It was a happy coincidence that I was there, I was available, I was in the right place at the right time. But boy, did it teach me a lot. It was a phenomenal start to my career. Having realised that the way we were designing systems within Barclays with humans at the centre and using user-centred design was really quite unique, I decided that I would be best off, and with the support of my now husband, then fiancé, of starting my own business. So at a very young age, I decided that I would walk the city in London to try to raise finance to do just that. Built a business case around creating an agency to do what I'd been doing at Barclays. And after a very short period, I realised that going to all these VC meetings just wasn't working. Unfortunately for me, the VCs were really only interested at that time in investing in male-led businesses. And the reason I knew that is because after one meeting, I took a very friendly VC aside and I said to him, listen, what is it about this business? The business case is good. Money is freely available just now. It's the dot-com boom. Where am I going wrong? And he said, listen, Catriona, you're too young, you're too female. And it wasn't a desirable trait. So I reflected on this, and in conversation with family and friends, I decided to go in there with a couple of people who, quite frankly, were acting a role. A couple of males and another excellent female. So we were four of us who went in, and within the first meeting, we had an offer of £1 million in cash. Within the second meeting, we had another equally good offer. And when it came time to choose the right VC, I selected the VC, and then I walked in and I said, unfortunately, they're no longer joining the business. And the VC said, well, at this point, we're so bought in to you, we want to proceed.
That is brilliant. So were you ever tempted to switch your name around and call yourself Campbell?
Exactly.
That is a great story, and congratulations on playing the game. And I'm so glad that it's not like that people need to do that these days. But that's
I think
fantastic.
20 years has seen some fantastic changes. And actually, when I look back, only 4% of VC investment was going to tech female entrepreneurs at that point. 4%. I was very fortunate to be one of them, and very fortunate to be a successful entrepreneur who then went on to sell the agency successfully, because that was also not a very good statistic. Successful exits were not common in those days.
Let's run with that for a little bit then, Catriona, about this period in the early 2000s. Obviously, it was the dot-com boom followed by a rise in these online companies, online offerings, online technology. What parallels do you see between the dawn of the e-commerce dot-com world with where we are right now in terms of the evolution of AI?
Brilliant question, Gareth, because so much is similar to what I lived through in the early noughties. I mean, in the year 2000, the democratisation of software that could help you build websites had really just happened. Anybody could build a website. And because anybody could build a website, there was a proliferation of really dreadful websites out there. I remember asking one VC when I was going for funding, I said, listen, my business is all about designing and building effective, efficient and satisfying digital media and technology. And he went, well, there's plenty of agencies out there doing that. I said, well, no, there isn't actually. There's lots of agencies building technology, not necessarily with user-centered design at the heart. So they're not being successful. So what I did at that point was I realized that we needed a set of standards in order to govern how users would be delivered services and solutions from government and indeed from the private sector. And so very fortunately for me, I was able to be part of the large UX UI community that was set up in the UK at the time. And we worked on some standards, and collectively we created what now has been adopted as international standards for web design. But the really interesting point that I wanted to raise was the government websites at that point were all entirely different, incredibly unusable. So Tony Blair, who was the PM at the time, decided he wanted to standardise the experience of his government services via the web. And so he created a task force, which I was very fortunate to join. And on that task force, we had the RNIB, the Royal National Institute of the Blind, the RNID, a number of other charities. And our job was to ensure inclusive design of government services. And so we created the standard for the UK government's online presence across hundreds of websites and made sure they were accessible by all and they delivered a good experience. And I'm really, really, really proud of that period of my life, that year where I did that pro bono work for the government, because it then led to a European standard. I was asked to go out to Europe and present to the European government around how we had done this in the UK. So it was an incredibly good practice. Now, moving on to AI now, the same thing is happening. People are building AI without regulation, without standardization. People are building in, I would say, on occasion, untrustworthy, unethical and biased data. And I am nervous at the moment that without regulation, like we did for the internet with the Disability Discrimination Act and Section 508 in the US, which ensures that online systems are accessible, I'm nervous and I'm worried that the same thing is happening now to AI systems. And I'd very much like to see more regulation.
Are you excited about some of the clauses in the smart data policy in the new data protection and information bill, for example?
Absolutely. But I think, Kerensa, it's even more, we need to go further than that. I think we need to make sure that we have some global governance and that we have some global common regulation. I think GDPR, just to get technical for a moment, GDPR was incredibly well adopted and has been adopted by a huge amount of countries around the world. It gives citizens a sense of their privacy and their data and how data will be used. I think we need exactly the same thing. We need some international policy and regulation adoption, not just here in the UK or the EU AI Act, or indeed what we're doing is in the UK with asking our current regulators to monitor and govern AI. I think we need to go one step further and create some international regulation in order to make sure that safety for all is considered.
Absolutely. And, I'm very inspired to hear about the journey when you worked with the UK government, but you're now in charge of the whole of the AI strategy for an entire country. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
So I was recently appointed the chair of the Scottish AI Alliance. And in 2019, the Scottish government decided that AI was incredibly important to get right for the economy, for its citizens, and for the country as a whole. And so what they did was, in 2019, they decided to put in place a number of individuals who would work to create common strategy for Scotland. So public sector was involved, private sector, third sector, academia. And it was launched in March 2021. I joined the board at that point. And over the last 2 years, what we've done as a collective team is we've created a one-stop shop for everything you need to know about AI. We have got access to an incredible course, which is called livingwithai.me. Living with AI is a free course for any citizen to take in Scotland, from child at school all the way up to your granny and grandpa.
Wow.
When that launches, that will ensure that everyone understands their rights. Everyone understands the 101 around AI. I'm really excited about that. It also has convened a thing called our AI Playbook. And our AI Playbook is a central resource for everything about AI that's going on in Scotland. So I'm very excited about that, Kerensa.
The Living with AI course, is that going to be rolled out nationally, like UK-wide then? Or is it a version of it in England and Wales?
It's something that the Scottish AI Alliance has come up with, Gareth, and has created and developed with Scottish Government funding. It's not to say that we couldn't explore that more broadly, because I think that a 101 for everyone is a really good idea.
I think that's so right. I mean, just talk a little bit about, for real people going about their day-to-day lives and thinking, particularly in this context, the people of Scotland, a wide variety of different people going about a wide variety of different jobs and a wide variety of different backgrounds. What are the kinds of considerations that you're thinking of in your position, whether that's thinking about the standardizations we were talking about, or regulatory landscape, or the enablers that need to be right, so that everybody can take advantage of the opportunities this presents?
There are probably three things that are incredibly important to our AI strategy. Ensuring that our AI that is being designed, is being deployed, is being developed, is ethical, inclusive, and that it is also, easy to use. So when I think about the ethics of AI, it's really important that the Scottish AI Alliance allows individuals to understand what people can and can't do with data. The Scottish Government has recently opened up a site to enable any citizen of Scotland to go in and see how their data is currently being used by the Scottish Government. Opening up what we're actually doing with our citizens' data has been incredibly powerful. Offering up the opportunity for citizens to understand more about AI through our course, but also equally the talent, and retaining that talent in Scotland is really important. So those three things I think are really, really essential to successful AI in Scotland.
Brilliant. Can I ask you about, obviously you work in the world of consultancy. I'm keen to understand what type of advice you give to businesses who want to incorporate AI into their operations and want to benefit from AI technology.
So I think I'm in a very fortunate position to work for a company like EY, which has an audit heritage, because we're very, very, very good at assessing how people are doing things against rules. So if I look at some of the ways we help our clients, we have a core set of services which is all around responsible AI. And I'll give you a really good example. We've recently worked with AstraZeneca. Their global leader is a lady called Cindy Hoots. She's just amazing. She's the CTIO of AstraZeneca. And what Cindy Hoots was very, very keen to do was make sure that any AI that was being deployed in AstraZeneca kept their employees safe, their customers safe, and kept the board safe. Okay, so that they were deploying it in the right manner. Now, when you think about AI in the pharma sector, I mean, it's advancing at a rate of knots. People are moving away from 10 years of drug discovery work into 10 months. They're going from wet labs where they used to have to test everything with special pharmacists to now software designing and developing that. And I think the appropriateness of AI has to be assessed. So what we do is we do an AI health check. We'll come into an organization and we'll go, tell us everything you're doing. We'll take a moment in time understanding of their governance of AI. We'll help them understand the explainability of the AI they're using. And we'll also help them educate internally, so educate the board, educate their CEO, educate the staff who are managing all of this. But also what we do is we'll help them find the right talent to continue on that AI journey. So a whole bunch of responsible AI technology support services that we provide. And with our audit heritage, I find it's a great conversation starter to just say, listen, let's just check what you're doing against some of the standards we're seeing. We really need to get this right.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there an appetite for this stuff? Are you seeing a reaction from businesses?
Gareth, I mean, honestly, to have an organisation like us come in and say you're doing everything right gives them a sense of relief, because you're almost working in a vacuum at the moment with AI. AI is...
it's FOMO, isn't it? AI FOMO.
Yeah, totally. That's brilliant, Gareth. Brilliant. And so I think that organisations need that level of comfort from an external source to say, you've got this right, you've got your governance right. you've got your management of this right, you've got your talent right. And by the way, here's a few more opportunities to use it that you hadn't thought about. Based on all of the great work we've done with other clients, this is some of the best practice. So yes, I think, Gareth, it's important to have that spread of best practice because we don't have the standardization, the regulation that we need. In the absence of that, I think best practice is something that we can certainly support.
Yeah. Would you second that, Kerensa, in terms of what you're seeing?
Yeah, I absolutely would. I mean, I think thinking about the whole scope is so exciting, and thinking about how you zero in, how you support people who have the appetite but not the knowledge, how you think about making the conversation accessible as well in terms of the language you use, because, you know, whether it's the technical side of it from a technology perspective or the technical side of it from a regulatory perspective, there's so much that's actually quite baffling if it's not your field. And actually, I would go so far as to say, and I don't know if Catriona would share this with me, but I work in data and AI, and I absolutely would not consider myself to be an expert in all aspects of it. And so there's so much I'm still learning as we go through all of this, and there's new things that are evolving all the time. So I think it's partly an education piece, and we can walk hand in hand. But where we do have specialist knowledge, I think it's really important to lean in and help others.
Brilliantly said. And I think, Kerensa, on that point, you said it's such a broad field, absolutely vast field. And then you've got to consider the additional technologies that are coming to the fore, like quantum. We did a fantastic project with BT around quantum and deployed a quantum key distribution system within EY between our two offices, a QKD line with you guys.
Yes.
And that's gone really well. I mean, it's quite remarkable, AI and the overlap with other emerging technologies. And I think no one person could be an expert in all of it. But you can be an expert in governance. You can be an expert in the talent around it. You can be so. I think we're seeing a lot of different specialisms now within the field of AI in business.
Yeah, that's true. I've been thinking about data quality, for example, and how you actually make sure that you have that at the fore, and how you actually help people understand what they can and can't use, and breaking down the regulations. And you talked about that GDPR is a great enabler, and it's actually working really well for us, and it's been adopted far more effectively than I think anyone might have thought before it came in. But helping people sort of hold their hands and walk through that is really important. And thinking the different dimensions. As you say, there's the cross-cutting themes across data and AI. So you can become subject matter experts in those kind of horizontal layers as well as the verticals.
And I think use cases are really important to understand as well. There's no point driving an AI strategy without understanding the application. What are you trying to achieve? And that means having a really good innovation process internally, because I think without understanding the ROI of the business case, without understanding how you'd actually drive and deliver that change throughout the organization, AI in and of itself won't do that. That requires innovative leaders and leaders who will transform a business.
And you've actually got a little bit of heritage in the innovation space. You talked about starting your own business at a very tender age. And here you are, having come full circle back in industry, but actually working in innovation as an entrepreneur.
That's right. We disrupt ourselves to a great extent in order to stay current and to be able to assist our clients as best we possibly can. And that means that we have a global innovation fund. That global innovation fund is run in order for the different areas of EY to draw down funding and design and develop their innovative ideas. What I love about that is it's almost like having a VC internally. It makes you really think about your business case. It's actually not an easy process, and nor should it be. But we also have a singular methodology, which is called the Double Diamond Innovation Technique. And that ensures that we are managing our innovation process consistently for the organization. And so when we templatize our innovation process, it really is applicable to all types of innovation, services, solutions, people matters. And I think what's really exciting about it is the application of that with AI is ensuring that we're building some really, really good use cases for AI internally, because we have that quick, collaborative innovation process at the heart of our business.
I was just going to echo that, because actually the bit of BT I work in similarly has an approach we've developed it called Rapid Works, and we have growth boards. So very similar to what you were saying about the VC approach. We have these stage gates, and we run lots and lots of experiments which strengthen the curve of customer proof in order to be able to get to the next stage, and being confident in when you pause something and when you pivot something and when you stop something completely, as well as when you persevere with an idea. It's having the space to be able to do innovation in a big company is an incredibly exciting opportunity, I think.
Brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. You've mentioned about user experience and design. You've brought that up a couple of times, Catriona, and it's fascinating to hear your take on AI through the lens of UX, of user experience. But you obviously have got a lot of opinions on this, so much so you wrote a book about it, AI by Design, and which I believe was published last year. So the question I've got is, what inspired you to write this book, and what do you hope readers will take away from it?
Well, thank you very much for referring to it. It was a real goal of mine to be able to, I guess, ensure that people have user-centered design at the heart of this new and evolving technology. AI currently, as we've just discussed, is so democratized. Anybody can use AI. Anybody can design systems with AI. In fact, OpenAI have created their API structure. So really, you're seeing a lot of organizations deploy AI and OpenAI and instead of a chatbot or instead of a call center system, etc. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. I think that mass democratization really needs to be done within rules. And in order to ensure that it's built effectively for efficiency and satisfaction of the end user, it needs to follow some guidelines. And those guidelines I talk about in the book, it's really just the standard user-centered design process. It's testing with users. It's assessing privacy. It's assessing the ethics, the trustworthiness of the system, and then launching. So in my book, I talk about creating a future-back strategy for your organization. And part of that future-back strategy has to be, where are you trying to go? What's the big challenge you're trying to solve? And then how do you get there? And how does AI support that endeavor? As opposed to starting with AI, we're going to use it. Let's not do that. Let's think about the future. What's the challenge, and work your way back. And using user-centered design principles is all I did in that book, but with a very, very strong focus on AI. It was a real pleasure to write, because I spoke to a lot of really incredible people when I was designing the book. And there's a phenomenal documentary on Amazon Prime called We Need to Talk About AI. And I gave the director a call, and I spoke to her, and I said, listen, for this, you have interviewed every single AI specialist globally. I'd love to speak to a few of them. And she said they would love to talk to you about this. Now, this was back in 2020. Now, I'm sure they're very busy people now. But at that point, they were more than happy to speak to me. So I got to speak to some of the world's leading AI specialists to write it. So I was absolutely delighted to be able to do that. So it gave me a really, really good insight into where AI was going, but also equally how my book ensures that we're designing with user-centered design and inclusive design at the heart.
And with your background in psychology, Catriona, I imagine you're always thinking, with all of the different innovations you're working on, all of the ideas you're working on, and also all the clients you work with, how the mind works and how people function. And as you talked about earlier, the mental models. I wonder if we could just invite you to talk a little bit as well about the work that you're pioneering in diversity and how that's leading to different approaches of getting the best out of people and enabling them to really flourish in the working world.
So I mentioned talent earlier on as one of the key tenets for organizations now. And I think now with the transformation agenda and the way that technology is so complex, we have this huge ecosystem, don't we, in organizations, software, hardware. It's an incredibly complex environment. And therefore, you've got to have some incredibly talented individuals and specialists in different areas. Our business decided that it needed some more data scientists and data engineers to support what we do. And so what we did was we deployed a Neuro-Diverse Centre of Excellence in the UK, based in Manchester. What we do within that centre is we recruit individuals who self-identify as having a neurodivergent trait. That could be dyscalculia, it could be dyspraxia, it could be dyslexia, it could be autism, it could be ADHD. Now, what we ask those individuals to do is, if they'd like to join EY, we ask them to apply through a very different process from our normal recruitment process. It's not interview. What we do is we ask them to apply in writing, and then we ask them to a thing called Super Week. The Super Week is a 4-day work experience with us. You can join us from home, work from home if you've got the right setup at home, or you can come into the office. And after 4 days, they've assessed us to see whether or not they actually would like to work with us, and we've assessed them. And hopefully there's a happy marriage, and then they join our firm. Now, we've had some brilliant people join our Neuro-Diverse Centre of Excellence who are data scientists and data engineers. And the reason that they're absolutely brilliant is because they think completely differently. Neurotypical thinking is kind of boxed into, certain processes, whereas in our findings, blended teams or neurodiverse teams just bring an incredibly different layer of thinking to our work projects. There's one individual in our Manchester centre who's brilliant, by the way, who's working a couple of levels above where he really ought to be, because he's just doing such a superb job in his data analytics role. I'm very proud of what we've done. Our individuals who work for us and our staff as a whole are very, very proud of our Neuro-Diverse Centre of Excellence. And indeed, the neurodiversity agenda within EY for our staff is also shifted recently. And we've got an incredible amount of support in place for neurodivergent individuals. And we find that supportive environments that we can design and develop around them is really important. So we have transformed our office in Manchester to help those individuals, and we're transforming some of our other offices to improve the context within which those people work.
And the retention rates are incredible, aren't they?
Yes, so one of our centres, which started 6 years ago, is a 95% retention rate for data engineers. And we all know that holding on to data scientists and data talented engineers is really tough. Typically, they'll hang around for a couple of years, whereas in that particular centre, 6 years, 95% have continued to work with us, which we're delighted about. Delighted.
Well, congratulations. It's staggering, and it's the best example I've come across in the last few years. So really, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was the first of its kind in the UK, I think, as well, Catriona, wasn't it? I mean,
that's right, Gareth.
We're really keen to see how that sort of plays out, and hopefully that will get adopted across other organisations as well.
I think there's a lot of work at the moment going on within British business as a whole to improve the environment and improve our recruitment processes. In fact, so much so that we've won some recruitment advertising awards recently for the differentiated way we've recruited. And I do hope that some of those learnings from that recruitment process filter through into our general processes, because I do think we've improved matters, not just for the neurodivergent, but also for us more generally across EY and our processes.
It's a nice segue to something I was going to follow up with, actually, is around the field of ethics, and particularly thinking about ethics with relation to AI. How do you go about advising people and also and planning your own work when you're thinking about responsible tech, responsible business, and the different scenarios where things can play out badly and there are bad actors out there? How do you go about the thinking around this, and then what do you do about it?
Well, I think what's really important is to have an ethicist within your team. So an ethicist is a role that is essential nowadays for British business. It really is. And we're very fortunate to have AI governance within EY. Our Technology Leadership Council within EY ensures that we govern our technology appropriately. And within that, we have an ethicist. His name is Asghar, and he's an absolutely superb individual. And his role is effectively to ensure that our standards and our guardrails across the business are appropriate for all of our new and emerging technology, particularly AI at the moment. We also have an ethicist in the UK here. And by connecting our global standards teams with our risk teams, our local risk teams, they ensure we don't stray and we keep on the right side of the law all the time. Obviously, our risk team look at the regulation, they look at the upcoming regulation. We respond to UK calls for guidance and advice. So the recent white paper that's come out, we are responding to. And so we are intent as an organisation on meeting all of the regulatory standards globally. And we make sure that our ethicists keep us on the right route.
Fantastic. Look, I mean, we've covered some amazing areas, but there was a big macro question I wanted to ask you. There are certain people out there who are quite concerned about the impact of AI will have on certainly the labour market and jobs and maybe their lives on a societal sort of level. But what can people do to prepare for the changes that are coming? And what's your forecast for how AI is going to affect the labour market and society at large?
Really good question, Gareth. I wish I had a crystal ball, but in the absence of the crystal ball, I think that it's fairly obvious that there are some jobs that are rules-based. Those rules-based jobs are the easiest to deploy any kind of technology for. So if I look at, I'll look at my own field, accountancy, or the field of law, or a number of rules-based roles. Those roles will be augmented by technology. And what's really exciting for me is that some of the mundane will decrease, and I think those jobs will be more interesting as a matter of fact. Instead of disappearing, I think they'll just become different roles. So IBM's ROS database is all of the American precedents in legal history have gone into that database, and now as a junior legal associate, you can go into the system and you can say, this is my court case, this is what I want to do, and legal precedent pops up. And there's your winning argument already. So less legal associates will be required by law firms. However, what we need to do is we need to think differently about how they're going to be deployed in an organization. I think their learning will be quicker. I think that they will then be able to be deployed face-to-face with clients more often, rather than sitting in a back room, leafing through big tomes of work. And so I think it's still going to be a very interesting career move and probably less mundane. So what does that do to the labour market? Well, it's a really good question, Gareth. I think that we need to start to think about how we change our education system fundamentally. Fundamentally, our curricula needs to change.
Yeah.
And we need to start ensuring that we are meeting the needs of our future school leavers and graduates to enter a very new world of work. And we need to think about some of those new skills that those people will require. So, Kerensa, you mentioned earlier on, what are the new skills that you need? Well, you need creativity. You need to be exceptionally good at understanding technology. And so I think that our schools have got to pick up the mantle and start to change the curricula, because it's a whole new world. And so preparing for that new labour market, some of the roles will change. And I think that it's a more exciting place as a consequence of having artificial intelligence and transformative technology, rather than me being nervous about it.
Yeah.
And on that note, Catriona, I was going to ask you a bit more of a playful question, which is, which of the AI tech that have come out in the last, say, 2 years have you most enjoyed having a play with? And which are the ones that you rely on and actually personally use, say, in a given week or given month?
So obviously, it's integrated. AI is integrated in so many different applications of technology that it's really quite difficult to choose. I think that some of the work that we've been seeing with GPT, though, however, for instance, an example, Shopify. Shopify has taken that API feed and has integrated it into 3 different areas of the online shopping experience. And I'm very excited that has democratized. Small business can now deploy that technology within their Shopify app at next to no cost. It's a tokenization transaction that goes on. So you can buy X number of tokens from GPT, and then you effectively fund the Shopify app through purchases. Now, that for me is really exciting, because I was a small business until I expanded the business and successfully sold it. But having easier, transformative technology to be able to deliver customer service applications, for instance, I think is absolutely brilliant. So I'm very excited about some of those experiences. Obviously, I think that some of the synthetic media is very exciting as well. I heard that an education organisation is currently using synthetic media studios where they'll have incredible speakers come in to a green room. They'll record them talking, and then they'll take effectively a visual image of that individual, and then they'll be able to create synthetic videos of those individuals and deliver them into the classroom. So I'll give you an example, and this is, just a very, very broad brush example, but let's say you're sitting in a geography class 5 years hence. You may well have some kind of setup where David Attenborough will on your screen discussing the latest geography curricula that you have to go through, as opposed to your standard teacher who will be supplementing his work or her work with these incredible teachers and tutors. So synthetic media, I think, is absolutely brilliant. It's come on so fast as well. It's just brilliant. So moving images, I think, transformative for society.
Brilliant. You obviously set up a business very early on in your life, a very successful business. You got acquired by a very big company, and then you stayed there for a very long time afterwards. So you've been there, you got the t-shirt type thing as an entrepreneur and as a successful executive in a corporate organization. But I'm just curious as to what advice do you give young entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs early in their entrepreneurial journey?
It's twofold. One is some advice that I was given really, really early on was ensure that you have a commercial person within your organization to help you, or make sure that you build those commercial skills super quick. Because starting out without a well-known brand, starting out without a large team, you need to build up your sales capacity super fast and get out there and start servicing. There is no point getting investment and sitting on it or doing R&D work with it. Get out there, get clients, get early clients, pilot clients. And the second thing, I guess, is don't give up. Don't be afraid to stop what you're doing if it's not working. And I know that they do say that, especially in the Valley, don't they, pivot and test and learn. And we transformed our business 3 times before we ended up happening upon the business that we then sold to EY. And we weren't afraid to test and learn. So we started out as a usability expert company. Then we bought an data analytics company. We merged those. Then we merged with a big design agency. And it was by having all 3 skills that we finally created the perfect design agency and technology agency that was successfully bought by EY. So commercial acumen and don't be afraid to fail and pivot. Fantastic
answer. Brilliant. Tell us a little bit about Catriona outside of work then. I hear that you're a bit of a sports lady. Is that the case? And what kind of stuff are you into outside of the daily grind?
So I'm very fortunate to live in Scotland, hence the Scottish AI chair role. And I live on a golf course.
Oh, lovely.
So I'm very, very fortunate to live on the local village golf course.
The home of golf as well.
Exactly. I do love to play golf and a fair amount of paddle tennis, which is that Spanish short form tennis game. And I absolutely love it. Where I live here, I live on a farm. And so by living on the farm, I'm surrounded by beauty, but also tractors and sometimes fertilizer. So I tend to get out as much as possible when I'm here. But it's a lovely, lovely, lovely place to live. And I'm very, very fortunate that I spend most of my working life either in London, Manchester, Dublin, or indeed from home. So I get out and about. And when I'm here, I play a bit of golf.
Catriona, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the Tech Leaders podcast. We covered so much ground there. I think the listeners will take a lot of value and will be entertained profusely by this conversation. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Catriona.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So Kerensa, how amazing was that conversation? Catriona is such a star, isn't she? Did you enjoy that?
I thought she's actually really, really amazing. And I can totally understand why she's in charge of the AI strategy for the entire of a whole country, Scotland.
Yeah, that was amazing. One thing that really stood out for me, there was loads of things that stood out for me, Kerensa, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved stuff that she's doing around the Neuro-Diversity Centre of Excellence.
Yes.
It's like an alternative recruitment process. So I thought that was fascinating. And then the use of AI in order to achieve that. That was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, she's installing a really sort of set of progressive thinking and progressive approaches which have inclusivity at their heart. And I think that's incredibly powerful. And it sends a signal, which I think actually will be market shaping. So, big cheers to Ernst and Young for doing that. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, it is. And it sounds to me that Catriona is in the epicenter of that, almost sort of driving it. So I thought that was fantastic. And to listen to her sort of unpack that and talk about how they're doing it. And also the stuff she was talking about in relation to the Tony Blair Taskforce.
Yes.
For inclusive design of government services. That's
Yes.
something that I'm sure you were familiar with.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's a real credit to her entrepreneurial journey, the fact that he relied on her and she's kind of come to kind of be the voice and the face of inclusive design. I mean, she's really powered it and have been part of the principal setting. So being part of the design of a framework like that is sort of generation shaping in many ways. So, hats off to her. But I do think it's very much rooted in, she wants to solve real problems for real people. And that's what she's doing. And all of her business adventures over the years have been about that. And at the end of the day, she's trying to make life better for people. I love that.
Yeah, me too. And that was typified in her answer to the question about what excited her most about AI, which was democratisation and obviously just taking the powerful artificial intelligence technology to the masses and improving people's lives, basically, with these incredible technology innovations that are going on right now. I thought that was really that was a great part of the interview.
I mean, she's clearly got her head more than screwed on, and I loved her approach, thinking about regulation as an enabler. I think that's a very, very powerful way of looking at it and thinking about how we go forward, both the opportunities and the challenges of AI. We have to be thinking about critical thinking. We have to be thinking about how we upskill the future generations to actually make the most of it in so many different ways. Different sectors, different industries will benefit from automation that will push through new, different types of jobs. For example, the prompt writer was not a role that existed a number of months ago, and now it's one of the hotly contested roles out there. So, all of this new technology offers up so many new opportunities, and I love the way that Catriona embraces that.
Yeah, me too. That was great. Well, look, this is shaping up to be some series, Kerensa. I think we had Priya in the first episode. We had Catriona today. I mean, I can't wait for the next one.
What I love as well is these are phenomenal tech leaders, and by a happy accident, they're phenomenal tech leaders who are women, and I think that's great role models for not just today's workforce, but for tomorrow's workforce. It's fantastic to see these people leading the way with intelligence, with talent, with absolute great sort of compelling power, and doing it in a way which embraces kindness and generosity and social impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not by design either. We didn't set out to find female tech leaders for this series. We set out to find the top thought leaders in the country, certainly in the world in this area, and it just happens to be females, which is just fantastic. So can't wait for the next one, Kerensa. Onwards and upwards, eh?
Bring it on.
As you quite possibly have heard me mentioning in the past, we record the mass majority of our episodes at an amazing studio facility here in Cardiff at Tramshed Tech. Tramshed Tech is a collaborative community of entrepreneurs and scaling businesses geared towards supporting growth in tech, digital and creative industries across an ever-increasing collection of locations and partner locations, UK-wide and internationally. It really is the perfect place for your business to start up, scale up, accelerate or innovate. Head over to tramshedtech.co.uk or just search Tramshed Tech on your favourite social media platform.